Greetings everyone and welcome. My name is Lori Laws and I am coming to you from the College of Nursing at the University of Arizona in the southwestern region of the United States. Today I'm going to talk with you a little bit about a study that I have proposed surrounding the Great Resignation or the Great RN Resignation. And this is a study proposal to guide the development of nurse-centric integrative nursing principles. Before we begin, let's just all take a moment to come together in this, our shared present moment. Go ahead and get comfortable in your seat or however you might be positioned. And if you're comfortable, you can go ahead and close your eyes and I'll guide us through a very short, mindful moment using some Tibetan symbols. So this is a guided breathing exercise. And I'm just going to guide you through a couple rounds of breath where you're going to breathe in all the love and compassion and awareness and amazingness and awesomeness that you are. And on your exhales, you'll release any fear, doubt, worry, or stress. So I'm going to use the Tibetan bells to get us started, and your senses might focus on listening to the end of when the bell tone ends, and then I will ring it a total of 3 times. And in between the bells, you'll do some guided breathing. So let's go ahead and get started. Here's our first sound. Breathing in love, gratitude, compassion. Breathing out stress, fear, worry, or doubt. The bell. Breathing in love, connection, security, blessings, intuition. Breathing out fear, worry, doubt, stress. Our third bell. Bringing in love, light, infinite blessings, security, safety, compassion. Breathing out stress, fear, worry, and doubt. Take a moment to transition. Open your eyes whenever you're ready, and we'll resume our presentation. Thank you for joining me in this grounding and centering moment. For our presentation today, we're going to take a look at the background and significance of why nurses are leaving their positions or their professions. We'll talk about the methods that are guiding this study and the anticipated outcomes. The funding for this study is predicted to be sigma theta tau. I have the grant in and I'm pending approval for that, pending award. It's a competitive process, so I'm holding a good thought, and I thank you for doing the same. The study is very much connected to our integrative nursing principles, which, just for our review, are listed there for you. And what inspired me to take on this project is that, as we've all lived through the trauma and the complexities brought on by a global pandemic, and particularly what's happening to our professions, our nurses in all aspects of practice have been challenged in ways that are just seemingly insurmountable. And as this has unfolded, I really started thinking about integrative nursing principle number 6. We're focusing on the health and well-being of the caregivers or the nurses, as well as their patients or clients. And I just started having this sense that we needed a subset of integrative nursing principles that moved sort of from this patient-nurse perspective and really transforming them and redefining them to be a subset of nurse-centric. And I'll show you a slide of what that looks like towards the end of our presentation. So it was this, we need to take integrative nursing principle number 6 and refine them and make them nurse-facing as a possible way to develop interventions and policies surrounding nurse wellness and nurse retention and professional quality of life. So the background of this topic is profound. We want to know, again, in this study, why nurses are leaving and what do they need. So overall, we have an international nursing crisis. Before the pandemic, we had 5 million, almost 6 million nurse deficit. An additional 4 million nurses were expected to leave due to attrition and other factors. And so before, in 2019, beginning of 2020, it was thought that we would be short about 10 million nurses. Well, then the pandemic came upon us and magnified many of the systemic issues that were already existing in our healthcare delivery system. And this and a host of other factors has led the International Council of Nurses to now project a 13 million deficit by 2030. And that is it's just a lot. It's such a big number, it's hard to fathom how many nurses we need and how stretched our existing nurses might be in meeting the demands of our clients and patients. The International Council of Nurses, the ICN, studied this, and they defined the term as the COVID-19 effect. And really what is happening is that nurses are experiencing mass and complex trauma as never seen before in contemporary times. And this leads to a lot of short and long-term effects across all domains, including our physical, mental, emotional, and existential, and interpersonal. But it was too big to fit on the screen, that word. So the pandemic really magnified the issues and challenges that we as a profession were facing. And nurses are leaving the profession due to pandemic factors, certainly, but also due to the exacerbation of these non-pandemic factors, the avoidable occupational suffering, which comes to number 5, our systemic issues, is that in the nursing profession and in healthcare delivery, there is a lot of avoidable occupational suffering that simply is not being addressed by our policies and our healthcare organizations. And we as a profession need to do more to come together and really advocate and have our voices be heard, which is very difficult when you're experiencing a pandemic. So I have a complete compassion for each and every one of us as we do our best to rise strong during these trying times. So a lot of the challenges that we have is there's a nurse migration tsunami where nurses from different countries, usually the wealthier OECD countries, are being recruiting to less wealthy countries. And so it's if you're in a low-income country, your nursing force is being recruited as a quick fix to the higher income countries. And so we need to make sure that we have equity and sustainable nurse migration patterns. We also have staffing ratios that are not optimally safe. Patient safety and quality is being compromised. We have moral distress and burnout among our profession, who has considerable unmet needs, and including staffing and safe ratios, competitive pay, and autonomy. And so what nurses are doing in response to these unmet needs is they're resigning. They're either leaving their existing position or they are leaving the profession altogether. So the ICN president, Dr. Pamela Cipriano, was recently quoted as saying, as a profession globally, we are asking for help because our nurses do not feel valued, they do not feel supported. And we know that over the course of time, we need to grow our workforce supply and retain that supply, which is becoming a much more critical aspect when we look at the conditions affecting us right now. So how does that translate to the United States? The American Nurses Foundation found in their recent survey that nearly 50% of nurses surveyed were experiencing resilience challenges. They're feeling overwhelmed, anxious, irritable, sad. A third of us are feeling angry, isolated, lonely, and depressed. And 25% of us are feeling numb, betrayed, guilty, or we feel like a failure. Other issues that we are experiencing here in the U.S. are understaffing and presenteeism. And presenteeism is where a nurse is showing up to do their job, but they're not fully present and they're not optimally functioning. And both of these cause a risk to patient and nurse safety. Quality of care can be compromised, and we have suboptimal nurse and organizational well-being. The third factor is the cost of understaffing and turnover. So hospital nurse turnover is right around 20% right now, which is an alarmingly high number. About 40% of hospitals are experiencing or anticipating nurse shortages, and over a third of our hospitals already have 10% nurse vacancy rates or higher. A lot of nurses have pivoted to travel nursing, which is a short-term fix, but it's not sustainable in the long term, at least not from the hospital's ledger sheet perspective. So from a hospital's perspective, to fill each nurse vacancy, it takes about 3 months and between $28,000 and $51,000. Travel nurses, on average, cost each hospital around $154,000 annually. And again, nurses are addressing their unmet needs with resignation letters, whether they're leaving direct patient care positions, whether they are pivoting to travel nursing, or whether they are leaving to the profession altogether. So what does the ANA have to say about this? And the ANA came out very strongly and said, we need to do more. We need to effectively investigate and mitigate the root causes of nursing shortages. Changes must be made in providing better work environments, appropriate compensation and benefits, and making patient safety a top priority to attract and retain nurses today and in the future. And I would just add that not only do we need to make patient safety a top priority, we also need to make nurses' safety a top priority. So how am I going about proposing this study and what methods are guiding it? So the study I'm working on right now is a qualitative descriptive study whose purpose is to inform the development of nurse-centric integrative nursing principles and exemplars, the purpose of which is to solicit nurse descriptions regarding their decision to leave their place of employment or the profession during the COVID-19 pandemic. The aim is to obtain descriptions of COVID and non-COVID factors that contributed to the nurse's decision to leave their position or the profession. The aim also is to obtain the descriptions of what the nurses needed during the time leading up to their decision. And lastly, the aim is to transform our existing integrative nursing principles into a subset of nurse-centric integrative nursing principles that have potential to guide interventions and policy development to better support our nurses and give us all a launching off place from which to have these conversations. So I'll be using a qualitative descriptive design, which means it's a straightforward, it's the least interpretive of the qualitative approaches. I'll be using purposeful and snowball recruitment techniques, and I'll be targeting nurses in the United States, registered nurses specifically who left their position or their profession in the last 2 years or so since the pandemic began. I will be collecting demographic information regarding educational attainment, number of years experience, and all of the other usual age and regional demographic information. We will be conducting the interviews using a semi-structured interview approach on Zoom, and to analyze the data, we will be using content analysis methods. So what do I hope, what do I anticipate is going to happen is that we're going to obtain very rich descriptions of why nurses are leaving their positions or the professions. And from that, here's one example. Here's the existing integrative nursing principles that we use. And the subset over here, and this is what I'm predicting, it might look something like this. Of course, I don't have the data yet to support it, but this is what I think that we might be looking at. Integrative Nursing Principle 1 would center on focusing on the nurses who are whole people in their body, mind, spirit, whose health and well-being are influenced by their environments, including their organizational environments. The second nurse-centric integrative nursing principle is that nurses, too, have the innate capacity for professional health and well-being. Healthcare organizations can place us in optimal work conditions to promote nurse health and resilience. For the third nurse-centric integrative nursing principle, it might read something like, nature has restorative properties that contribute to nurse health and well-being. Healthcare organizations should use biophilic designs and incorporate nature into practice settings wherever appropriate to optimize these properties. The fourth nurse-centric integrative nursing principle is that integrative nursing is person-centered and relationship-based. Healthcare organizations and nurses together co-create diverse, equitable, and inclusive partnerships to promote nurse and organizational wellness. The fifth example of what a nurse-centric integrative nursing principle might be has to do with healthcare organizations and nursing using a wide range of evidence-informed traditional and integrative modalities to optimize nurse and organizational wellness. I've talked to a number of nurses who are saying, you know what? Bringing in pizza is not helping me. Having somebody just say, "Oh, go have a whiff of lavender essential oil." Well, maybe a better start than pizza is like putting an eyedropper onto a forest fire. More is needed. And then the last integrative nursing principle is that we are to prioritize the health and well-being of nurses in body, mind, spirit, so they may provide high-quality, safe, effective care for patients. Nurses and healthcare organizations support one another to develop resilient strategies and rekindle the healer's heart that initially drew us to our profession. So once the study is completed, I intend to disseminate it here for you, again at our 5th International Integrative Nursing Symposium. The results of the study will be published in the Journal of Nursing Scholarship, which is the publication put forth by Sigma Theta Tau, and I will likely disseminate the findings of the study at the WIN conference, which is the Western Institute of Nursing, and it's the western part of the United States nursing research and education professional community, and I'll be presenting there as well. So that is what I am up to, and I hope you have found this presentation somewhat fulfilling. Again, I'm just going to close now that you know what the opening breath exercise was. I am just now going to make use of 3 Tibetan bells, and I will let you guide yourself and your breathing as we close out our time together. So go ahead and get comfortable in your seat. Close your eyes if you're comfortable so doing. And here comes our first bell, and you may guide yourself by breathing in love, light, and all the amazing that you are, and breathing out any stress, fear, worry, or doubt. Here we go. Whenever you're ready, you can slowly move your hands or your feet, your neck. Do a little rotation in your spine and open your eyes to come back to this present moment. Again, it's just been my great pleasure to present to you today. I thank you so much for your engagement and your support. And please do email me with any questions, comments, or feedback as desired. And find at the end of the presentation are the references that I used to support this. So thank you again. Until next time, namaste.